Everyone, lots going on as usual. Today's Thursday, May 1st, 2025, and the invasion of decline of the West is being managed. We're not growing anymore. We're just falling. And I've got a YouTube video I was watching and a couple of things at the end of the show today that kind of really drive that point home. Not necessarily drive that point home, but drive why I think that's happening, that point home. And there's a couple of different things that I've got, and I think that it's very, very interesting. Just things that used to underpin the foundation of the West, like freedom of speech, self-defense, right to face your accuser, these things have been eroded to the point of being overtaken by the communist mobs, the people who are protesting for Palestine, all of these people who are doing very emotional things, demanding these changes be made in foreign countries that the Canadian government doesn't have a responsibility for, nor could they make it happen. It's done to undermine our society, and it's done to remove the things that would protect us from what they want to do to us, the communism they want to introduce. And the communism will be cloaked in, this is for your safety, comrade, but even more so, this is to save you from all of the terrible things that are happening. All these terrible things are because capitalism failed, which is absolutely not true. And in order to save you from the failure of capitalism, we have to give you communism. The communism will save you. And it's bullshit. The communism is what's causing all the problem. They are creating this problem to offer their solution of communism. And we're supposed to not examine this at all. We're not supposed to look this gift horse in the mouth. We're supposed to just take it. And it'll be like a Trojan horse. We don't want to take it. We shouldn't take it. And we should demand our standards are adhered to, and we're not at this point in time, and it's really, really annoying. Anyway, we'll talk about that. Liz May wants to be the Speaker of the House. This helps the Liberals how? If the Liberals have to take a member of their caucus to become the Speaker, they lose a seat, a voting seat, and it makes it a less big minority. And Mark Carney wants a majority. He wants a majority to the degree where he's willing to pay NDP members to come over and cross the floor. So if Liz May is offering to be the Speaker of the House, I think Mark Carney will say yes. In BC, they tried to get Rustad said no, but they wanted a member of another party to act as speaker, and Rustad made sure that wasn't happening because the minority was so razor thin that it would have made a difference. But still, Liz May coming in and offering this for the Liberals does a lot to bolster their ability to get things done, like censorship laws and all the rest. And so and if they have a natural sitting majority, then they can get everything done with impunity and roll over everybody and shut anything down. And so, I mean, what a dangerous situation to have. And Mark Carney is trying to finagle it, and we'll see by the end of May if he does. Alberta sovereignty progresses. Danielle Smith's talking, just the petition to have the referendum. So small steps. I don't know. I'm of the opinion that they are not going to allow Alberta to leave Canada, no matter what the circumstances are, no matter how much people vote for it. It will be a close but no cigar situation, and the losers will go back and lick their wounds, and they won't talk about Alberta separation or Alberta sovereignty for a while. I think that's what's the plan here. I hope I'm wrong about that. License to be Offended, art show, we're going to start there, was canceled due to, you know why it was canceled, because you don't have a license to be offended anymore. If you are offended, we've got to get this thing out of here. There's no way. This is too offensive. Oh my gosh. Pearl clutching is endless. And the U.S. removes itself from the Agenda 2030. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, we got to start with Telegraph in the United Kingdom. And this was Bob, what's his name? I can't remember his name, but he was sharing it. He was a famous cartoonist, and he was canceled over the COVID cartoons that he did. He said, I'm drawing cartoons and you're canceling me over this. Thought crime is alive and well in England type deal. And anyway, the Telegraph says License to be Offended show was halted because the venue operators, quote, don't do politics. Find out more about this canceled exhibition. Yes, right. So the irony is thick here, right? It's License to be Offended art show, and the venue suddenly realized, oh gosh, we don't do politics. Oh my God, I can't believe we've scheduled this and our long-standing policy of just now, where we don't do politics. Oh, well, we've got to cancel, right? So, wild and crazy things. Okay, Table Salt says, we're got to talk about the elections. And Table Salt says, top 3 elections for the Conservative Party of Canada. Number 3 was Stephen Harper. in 2011 with 5,832,000 votes. And number 2 was Andrew Scheer in 2019 with 6,239,000 votes. And number 1 was Pierre Poilievre in 2025 with 8,089,000 votes. And this is why Ford and Houston are trying to make peace. Maybe. So it's interesting that Pierre Poilievre had a really, really great turnout for the Conservatives, but ended up losing his seat. So what's the deal with that? What's going on with Pierre Poilievre losing his seat? There's a lot of reasons, not least of which the collapse of the NDP and the Greens down from 24 seats for the NDP down to 7 seats, which is a huge collapse, and Jagmeet Singh's already gone. But other things as well. There were other things that came into play. And one thing that was overlooked, I think, is that they they changed the district. It's called redistricting in the United States. But they changed the district and merged it with a very liberal district in 2022. And if you're playing one game and they're playing another game, or they're rigging the game by taking advantage of details like this, and you're not paying attention, you don't have your eye on the ball, then you lose your seat, right? But here is Concerned Canadian. He says, if this isn't liberal election interference in Poilievre's riding, what is? This was an attack on an opposition party leader, and the party reminds you of Russia and China. Yeah, so if you can explain these tactics away as benign and, activist citizens and things like that, that's sometimes the Occam's razor is you say that's probably what's happening here. But I don't think so. It doesn't seem like that. It seems like a tactic. It seems like something done coordinated and with intent, maybe with funding, maybe through NGOs. There was a group, and I had the article, but sometimes when I keep an article, it doesn't actually keep, and I can't find it in time. And I'm on a tight schedule. I try and get my shows done, and then I've got other things to do. So I couldn't find it this morning. So apologies about that. But there were all sorts of reports of these type of irregularities, and it is not good. It is very, very bad. And it reminds me of, a foreign country. Honestly, it reminds me of a foreign country. And we are not able to examine this stuff. We are not able to get to the bottom of this stuff. Because if you say this is election interference, I'm already getting people pushing back on that, saying this isn't election interference, it's this or it's that. All of it together paints a picture of very coordinated, huge amounts of control, and even the math, even how it broke down after the fact. It just seems very, very coordinated. It seems very, very unlikely that Canada would actually vote for this. And yet people are accepting it and attacking people who say things look fishy here. We should look into, these 91 people on the ballots. But yeah, so there was that whole article that I can't find that had a group that was claiming they're claiming responsibility for it, and they say they did it, and their intervention was successful at unseating Poilievre. But them doing this 91 seats on the ballot in the same time as at the same time as all the rest of the stuff. The redistricting, it just seems too unlikely. It just seems too perfect, right? And I just don't believe in the coincidences anymore. Regina is talking about Cat Canada. Cat Canada says Pierre's riding, which has always been conservative, was merged with a heavy liberal riding. If the boundaries weren't redrawn in 2023, he would still have his seat today. I think it was 2022, but I'll show you just in a minute why I think that. Regina says, rig, cheat, steal. Nothing is beneath the Liberals. Nothing. They set the rules, but don't follow any. Honesty is not in their playbook. Foreign interference, massive conflict of interest, illegal activities are all without consequences. Citizens are treated with disdain. Canada is not a functioning democracy. Nope, I don't think we are. I don't think we have been for a while. Here's Alexandra Lavoie, and she says in 2022, Elections Canada redistrict the riding represented by Pierre Poilievre. You'd think he'd know about that. You'd think he would be aware of that. Somebody would be saying like, hey man, did you notice that they redistrict the whole riding into a whole 40,000 Liberal voters? Notice that at all? No? Anyway, a new riding, Kanata, was created, while the remaining part of the former Kanata-Carleton riding was merged into the redefined Carleton riding. Since 2015, Kanata-Carleton had consistently elected Liberal MPs. This redistribution may have played a role in Pierre Poilievre's defeat. And then Mario goes through this a little bit more. We'll listen to the first minute here, because it's a 6-minute thing. He's gone very upset. He's very angry, very upset, and he's calling out the CEO of Rumble. He's calling out all these people. Other people, Viva Frei called Mario out for being a crybaby and like get over it type deal. So very interesting stuff going on with the influencers who I think really believe they had a win in the bag and are very personally upset by this whole thing. It's really interesting to watch. All of this is interesting to watch to me anyway. Mario says, Pierre losing his seat made absolutely no sense. So I dug into things a bit further. What I didn't know was that his riding was expanded into heavy Liberal territory, exactly why Carney chose his riding right beside Pierre's instead of Edmonton, where he announced his leadership bid and where he grew up. Once you factor in immigration into all these metro areas, the whole thing is mind-blowing. I'm rarely surprised, but as I was researching more, I was shocked by this too. I truly believe we are moving towards a one-party state where Liberals are importing voters, which partially could explain the fast-tracked system to citizenship and why they won't stop birth tourism or any of the loopholes that exist today. One of the things, I was talking about how elections are rigged. Elections are rigged partially by open borders and bringing people in, PR people who are here have permanent residency, but not citizenship. They're not supposed to vote, but they get voter cards in the mail. If they have driver's licenses, they sometimes get added to the voters' rolls, and people vote with those cards. And those votes count because nobody goes back to examine them. They look legit. And so it's interesting to me how that's coming into play now. And previously, like before the election, if I would say to Mario, hey, elections are rigged for these reasons, he would be like, you're splitting the vote, you're a PPC supporter, blah, 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 blah. PPC doesn't have a way to get a seat and you should stop talking and blah, 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 blah. And most of these people either have me on block or muted. I don't care, but it is what it is. And so I just think it's interesting that when I try and bring something to them and say, hey, this is going to impact you. I've seen this impacting everything, and it's going to impact the race overall and the people that you support. They just attack me. And I find that weird. I find that really strange. And now that they've lost, now that they've seen what's going on firsthand and been personally affected by it, I guess, now they believe me. But still, they've burned bridges to the degree where a bunch of them have natural allies blocked because they refused to see what was happening. And they refused to see it because they thought they had a win in the bag. And it's weird. It's a really weird thing. Anyway, we'll listen to this because, we'll just give it a minute. Here we go.
Pierre losing his riding.
Oh, it's really quiet.
Never sat well with me.
It's really quiet. I'm not going to turn it up. We're going to keep going. Moving on. Here is Kian. And this is another one of Kian's one of the co-owners of Juno News. I think Juno News was going to be set to get a bunch of funding that's not CBC funding. You know what I mean? CBC gets shut down, and then we have $1 billion slush fund. We don't need $1 billion to keep Canadians informed with alternate media, and we'll create a fund, and Juno News will be at the top of it. You know what I'm saying? Insiders know where their bread is buttered, and they line right up, and they have the vehicle to make sure they can get paid by those bucks, right? And so I think Juno News was created for that reason. Now, I don't know. Now I guess it's just the new vehicle, but Kian's writing out of Juno, and he says the PPC vote split tipped tight Ontario races in favor of the Liberals. The arrogance of that argument cannot be overstated. If the PPC, this is me personally, and people I've talked to as well who vote PPC and things like that, but if PPC didn't exist, I wouldn't vote. I wouldn't then go, nuts. I'm going to vote for the other Liberal Party. I'm going to vote for the people who are going to build houses for foreigners. I'm just not. I'm not going to do that. I barely want to participate in the system at all because I think the system is effing rigged. And so I look at this and I think it's an arrogant, ridiculous argument. The argument boils down to the Conservatives who wanted the PPC vote, alienated the PPC, did not see them as an asset, did not see them as people to talk with and discuss things with and to figure out, well, we agree here, but we don't agree here. And so, let's work on things that we agree on to bolster that side of the conversation rather than blow up the bridge between us, right? It's a really interesting thing. And then to blame the PPC for the CPC loss because the PPC didn't vote for the Conservatives didn't earn those votes. And so they didn't win. And that's the story, man. It's not the PPC's fault that your team lost. It just isn't. You can make that argument, but I think it's a bullshit argument. I think it's a very weak argument, and it's kind of crybaby-ish. I don't know. Is that mean? I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just trying to say it doesn't seem like a legitimate argument to me. Here is CTV News, and they say the Conservative Party needs to be, quote, not so extreme, and you'll be surprised who that quote is from. And it's time for soul searching, they say, what conservatives are saying about Poilievre's defeat. And so that's Michelle Ferreri. I think that's her name, Michelle Ferreri. Yeah. Amid questions about the future of the Conservative Party and its leader, Pierre Poilievre, one progressive Conservative premier says it's time for some soul searching, and one defeated member of Parliament says she thinks the party needs to be not so extreme going forward. I think that the work has come out of this election is we've got to find some common ground, said unseated Conservative Michelle Ferrier in a video posted Tuesday. The opposition is going to be even more important than ever, as they always are, to hold the re-elected Liberal government to account, but find that sweet spot where we are not so extreme on this or that. Ferrier said it would be an interesting journey to watch. Do you think that's the issue the Conservative Party has? Do you think that they're so extreme that people are tuning out? I think that they're not extreme enough. The Conservatives were just fine with building homes for foreigners, and the Liberals want to censor the internet. They want to censor speech on the internet. Who's extreme? And she wants to say the Conservatives are extreme? Whew. Wow. That's unbelievable. Just straight up unbelievable. I think that if the Conservatives soften their message, they're going to be in a situation where they're just liberal. I mean, they're already there. They're liberals. They have a lot of the same policies as the Liberals. The only one that I really liked was the free speech stuff. And yeah, I mean, extreme. So I don't know. Ferrier's not, I don't think she's accurate there. Anyway, moving on a little bit, Mario says, Doug Ford says, the last time I checked, Pierre Poilievre never came out in our election, so he didn't come out to support my party in the election. Why should I support him? Neither did Carney, but he had no issues drinking lattes with Carney and hanging out with Freeland. Trump. Ford is a traitor, plain and simple. Traitor. So I don't know about traitor, but I think that it's interesting to watch him be so enthusiastic around Chrystia Freeland and not say anything about the invasion, not say anything about... There's a lot of things going on with regards, black brilliance, nonsense, affirmative action. There's a whole lot of things that are not conservative that Doug Ford is signing off on. And not to say I don't understand. I get how he's playing the game, but does he not see how playing this game is going to destroy Canada? It doesn't make sense. The globalists want a watered down population that's easy to control, and Doug Ford is delivering, but that doesn't mean we're a productive society. You can have a productive society that's innovative and creating things and developing things and moving forward, or you can have a society that's in managed decline, and that's it. We're having a managed decline. We're not innovative or moving forward or anything like that. This is our leader and his wife. This is the weirdest. I saw this yesterday, and I guess sometimes the tabs that I collect don't end up in the show for various reasons, but this one didn't because it just got lost. And these guys are dancing, and the song overlay is not what they're actually dancing to. But they're dancing with their elbows up, and it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. It looks stupid. I am embarrassed on their behalf. This guy's the smartest guy in the room. I can't believe it. Here's Mark Carney and his wife dancing with their elbows up. And it looks like she's kind of having a seizure or something. I'm not sure. I have no idea. If I was at a bar and looking at this, I would be like, oh my God. I would be embarrassed. I would leave the dance floor because I was so embarrassed. So honestly, I have no idea. That's the leadership of Canada right now. My gosh. Table Salt says Canadian parliamentarians will work for 20 days out of the first 8 months of 2025, just enough time to get the deficit up to $75 billion. Yay. Pierre is not missing much, he says, in his search for a seat. Here's Brett Wilson. He says, very reliable rumor has it that the Liberal Party is attempting to buy new MPs who were elected as NDP to cross the floor and give the Liberals a sitting majority. So much for election integrity and honesty, eh? Canada is in a brutal space. Yeah, yep, we sure are. It doesn't look good. Here's Jinglai. He says, sources are hinting that the Liberal Party is trying to convince NDP MPs to cross the floor to form a majority government. The Liberals are only 3 seats shy of a majority, and today an NDP MP didn't rule out this idea. We are screwed, absolutely screwed. Yeah, yep. CTV News says Green Party's Elizabeth May open to running for House Speaker, joining Carney cabinet. So the Speaker wouldn't actually be in Carney's cabinet. Even if the Speaker was part of the Liberals, maybe they get to sit in on cabinet meetings, but they don't get, and I'm not sure if that's even true, but they don't get a vote. Like, they don't get a vote. They only get a vote in cases of ties. And I don't think I'm talking about cabinet meetings there. But Elizabeth May, being the Speaker, takes the pressure off the Liberals because if Elizabeth May refused to be the Speaker of the House, the Liberals and like everybody else refused to be the Speaker of the House, because maybe the Bloc would, or maybe the NDP would, right? But anyway, if everybody else refused and the Liberals had to use a seat of theirs to be the Speaker of the House, then that drops them by one seat and makes Carney's majority more difficult to get, more difficult to attain for him. So it helps the Liberals. And can you imagine Elizabeth May as the Speaker? I don't know about that. Here is somebody was saying, I think we should make Chrystia Freeland the Speaker of the House, just so we never have to hear her say Mr. Speaker ever again. I can't believe that she got her seat back. Unbelievable stuff. Unbelievable. Leo Housakis is responding to Concerned Canadian. Concerned Canadian says, BMO, TD Bank, jumpy about Canada's minority government. Financial Post, Carney's deficit spending will remain a major economic challenge. And Housakis says, it's a sad day in Canada when the 2 political parties that got overwhelmingly rejected at the polls hold the balance of power over the Liberal government. NDP 7 and Greens 1 will drive the Liberal agenda just for political expediency. Well, because it's the easy thing to do for them, right? And so that's not good. Miranda, oh yeah, I've already done this one. Here is Chicklet. She says, I have the same question. Who sacrifices? Tara says, direct quote from Carney's victory speech, quote, but even given that, I want to be clear, the coming days and months will be challenging and they will call for some sacrifices. What sacrifices? Have we not sacrificed enough? Some people cannot afford to buy a home, pay their taxes, put gas in their vehicle, feed their family. Buckle up, Canada. This is what you chose. I don't think so. I think we're in for a very rough ride. I do think that. Yes. Yep. CTV News says Carney reiterates commitment to Ukraine in a call with Zelensky. So Canada, you guys are prepared to make sacrifices for Ukraine, right? Because that's what Carney wants. Carney wants to assure Ukraine endless money for you guys, but Canadians, dark days ahead, we've got to make sacrifices. Not great. Not great. Not my favorite. Here's Daisy, and he's asking Mark Carney some questions, and Mark Carney is sniping back. So that's interesting. Here we go.
Mr. Carney, you ran a fear-based campaign focused on Trump, elbows up. I did, actually.
Why does Trump prefer you over Pierre Poilievre? Why does Trump say you make too less?
Do you plan to do anything about the weekly hate marches here in Ottawa?
There you go.
We have weekly.
So he doesn't respond, right? All of the press and everything like that. He doesn't respond. He doesn't need to respond. Here's Trump talking about Carney and Poilievre, and he says, I think honestly that the one Mark Carney disliked Trump the least, and he won. And he says, I think the conservative hated me more. Here's Donald Trump.
Trail. Are you interested in rebuilding relations with Canada, and if so, how?
No, well, I think we're going to have a great relationship. He called me up yesterday. He said, "Let's make a deal." You know, he was running for office. They both hated Trump, and it was the one that hated Trump, I think, the least that won. I actually think the conservative hated me much more than the so-called liberal. He's a pretty liberal guy. But no, I spoke to him yesterday. Couldn't have been nicer, and I congratulated him.
Trail.
Yeah, Mark Carney is. I don't think I'd describe him as nice. I don't think I'd describe him as a nice guy. Here is ER Doc. He says, we told you so. Andy Lee says, well, isn't that just working out nicely? BNN Bloomberg is reporting Brookfield weighs U.S. manufacturing investment following tariffs. So, oh, look at all the manufacturing coming back to the U.S. That'd be a good investment, says Brookfield, right? Lining Mark Carney's pockets. Here's CBC Watcher, and National Post is reporting, who is Diana Fox Carney? What to know about the wife of Canada's Prime Minister, published April 29th, the day after the election. CBC Watcher says, because the day after the election is always the best time to inform readers that Carney's wife works at Eurasia Group with Jerry Butts. Yep. Pretty funny. That's pretty interesting, right? Don't you think? Here's Canada Proud, and they say Green Party co-leader Jonathan Trudeau announces his resignation. I failed to convince my fellow citizens to send me to Ottawa. So the Green Party is going to be decimated because Elizabeth May is going to be the Speaker of the House, enabling the Green zealot Mark Carney to carbon tax us into the poorhouse. And he's gone. So very, very interesting. I mean, I'm not sad that the Green Party is going to be decimated, but it's an interesting turn of events, right? Here is, I'm going to say goodbye to the stream. I know it seems a little short today, but the election news is kind of thin. And so I want to leave a robust rest of the show for the rest of the people. So thanks for watching, everybody, on the stream, and we'll catch you tomorrow. And for everybody else, hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful